So we're going to go through the process of cellular respiration. We're going to start this board. We're going to pretend that this is our cell. And so the outside here, this is the cytoplasm, all the stuff that surrounds the organelles. And this organelle is the mitochondrion, which is the powerhouse of the cell. This is where our energy is made, right? And so this is how the mitochondrion actually makes that energy. So we're going to start off in the cytoplasm with the process we call glycolysis. If you remember, glycolysis literally means lysis or breaking apart of a carbohydrate, glycogen, glucose, what have you. So this is going to break it apart. So we're going to start out, we have just ingested our glucose. So glucose again is C6H12O6. And in glycolysis, we're actually going to go through, this is a 10-step process. We're not going to go really in depth with this process, but we do need some energy to get it started. And so we need to use 2 ATP. And from that, we are going to get or make 4 ATP. And also another energy carrier called NADH is going to be made. We're going to make 2 of those. At the end of this process, we're going to have 2 molecules called pyruvate. Now, this glucose is a 6-carbon. This one is a 3-carbon. So we're going to get 2 3-carbon molecules from this 6-carbon molecule once it's broken up. Our net totals then for this process are 2 ATP because there are 4 made, but 2 of them will go back into the process to continue it. And we have 2 NADH. So this is our energy net totals for the process of glycolysis. Now glycolysis is going to start us off whether we have oxygen or not. So after this, if we do not have oxygen, let's say we don't, so no oxygen, we're going to go into the process called fermentation. This is anaerobic respiration at its finest. And there's 2 different kinds. So depending on what kind of a cell we're dealing with, we're either going to be having lactic acid fermentation, which happens in like our muscles, okay? Or we're going to have alcoholic fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation is going to produce ethanol as a byproduct and also carbon dioxide. Lactic acid fermentation will produce the carbon dioxide and also the lactic acid buildup. And that's what causes that soreness in your muscles after you do some really strenuous activity. If you have gone anaerobic in your activities, then you are going to have that buildup of lactic acid. Okay, so that's without oxygen. If you have oxygen, which in this case we do, we are going to head into the mitochondrion. So think of the oxygen as kind of your entrance fee into the mitochondrion. Once in here, we finish the process of aerobic respiration. Our first process is going to be called the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle is sometimes called the citric acid cycle as well, so you may see that at some point. Citric acid because it produces citric acid at one point during the process. We have not looked at each of the steps. That's a little bit more advanced, so if you take college biology, you'll get into that some more. But we do have some things that we're going to talk about what's produced here. So the 2 pyruvate go in. So the Krebs cycle is actually going to happen 2 different times. So it's going to take a pyruvate, we're going to take one of them, and we're going to go through this process first. What's going to be given off? We're going to be giving off carbon dioxide. That's our waste product. We're also going to have some energy carriers be made. So we're going to make NADH, ATP, more NADH, and another energy carrier called FADH2. Now, these energy carriers are going to be carrying that energy in the bonds. So where the hydrogen binds onto these, that's where that energy is going to be carried. And it is going to be carried along the process, and it's going to be used a little bit later on. Net totals for this process. We have to keep in mind that we go through this twice. So we have 2 ATP that are made. We have 3 NADH here, so that would be 6. We go through the process twice. And we have 2 FADH2s. So those are our energy nets on that process. All right, so once we've done that, we have a total of 4 ATP, 2 through glycolysis, 2 through the Krebs cycle, and then we are going to continue on with our next process. Let's just use purple. Okay, now within the inner membranes of the mitochondrion, called the cristae, I'll draw these in. Here's all those ripply inner membranes that are characteristic of the mitochondrion. We have some enzymes that are in there. So I'm going to make this enzyme here. This enzyme is called ATP Synthase. You'll notice it ends in ASE, so that indicates, hey, enzyme. What happens here is all of the energy carriers that we have made up to this point, not ATP, but NADH and FADH2, they're going to go into this process and they're going to be broken apart. So when we break these bonds, we're going to break off the hydrogens, and energy is going to go into the system. Energy in the form of electrons, essentially. That's why they call it the electron transport chain. So the electrons then are going to be used to power this enzyme, and it is going to take ADP, remember that's the de-energized form, and phosphates, and it's going to put them together to give us ATP. Specifically, 34 max. So this is going to be our big energy carrier. So we have our net totals for this, 34 ATP. We no longer have any NADHs or FADH2s because those are used here. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is these hydrogens. Now remember, when we're inside of the mitochondrion, we need oxygen. There's oxygen present. So the hydrogens and oxygens are going to bind together, and water is going to be given off. So if you go through this whole process, you should be able to match up all the different parts of the formula. Formula, remember, is C6H12O6, so it's glucose plus oxygen, gives us energy, which is our ATP. And then it gives us carbon dioxide, 6 carbon dioxide, and 6 water. So you should be able to go through the formula and find all the different spots that things go into or come out of this process.